Okay, good evening, everybody. We are just about to start our webinar on trauma-informed hip-hop. We've got Steve, Maximillian, Eusebe from Do the Mic Thing, and we're going to start off with a little video for you.
Good evening, everybody. I think I'll start. That was a video, I don't know. Let me get a grip of everybody around. There we go. That was a video from a British rapper called Dave, who's from Streatham. In 2020 won the Mercury Prize Award for his album Psychodrama, which is really one I felt one of the most groundbreaking mental health records that I've ever heard, because he really based it around his therapy and being in a therapy chair and looking at his trauma in Britain as a rapper, delving into, you know, past identity, black identity, love, hate, mistrust, and everything else. But it's a great album. I guarantee you all, I think you should all check it out and have a listen to it, because it is a whole album from beginning to end, non-stop, brilliant music on mental health, really. So thank you for listening to that. My name is Steve Maximillian Eusebe. I have been in mental health and working in mental health now for about 8 years. And I'm a professional musician of 30 years. And I always wanted to do something with music. You know, I had a successful music career as an artist. But there was something missing that I wanted to do with music that really made sense. 30 years as a musician, 22 years in social care, working in yachts, youth offending teams, schools. I was a pastoral manager. I could never find something that made my music work. And it was 8 years ago, I decided to really look it up and search mental health music, and found a charity that was working in the early stages of mental health music. And that charity really was working in hospitals, acute wards, medium secure units, just doing general musical things of singing sort of live to patients and things like that, really. But we started using what was a software called a Beatmaker in those hospitals and getting people involved in music production. Now, we used an iPad, which was quite relevant at the time, but it started to take off because, you know, one of the things that you know, with mental health gets hampered the most is motor neuron skills. And so one of the things with the iPad and using it as we did with Beatmaker and GarageBand, it allowed patients to get involved themselves, using their hands, fingers, however they felt that day. You know, they may not have been well, they may struggle to press the button, but we managed to make things or make music out of that. And that's really where it all started for me.
Thanks, Steve. So yeah, you've given us a little bit of an intro regarding you and how you came about to starting at Do the Mic Thing. So Steve, do you normally run your workshops on the weekends or in the evenings, or how does it work?
Evenings, daytime as well, because there are two types of work that I do. I work with acute wards and hospitals, community, especially patients on community leave, who are in the community. Hospitals can then forward them to me to work within our studio. So we do a lot of work there, but that work primarily in the day, and then in the evenings more with the youth and young adults or people who are undiagnosed with mental health but might appear, you know, young people from gangs and things like that. So that's what I do in the evening.
So one of the things that we wanted to look at was through this research seminar series every month, on the second Monday of every month for a year. So from now, which is, we're on Monday, the 11th of July, And we're heading up till pretty much May next year, I believe. April next year, I think, is the final one. So there'll be 3 sessions with people running workshops in their respective communities. They have portable studios, they do hip hop therapy, they do it with beat making, they do it with rapping, they do it with ciphers, they do it with their youth services and so on. So we're going to explore tales from the ground. The whole point of this series is to celebrate Hip Hop Heal's 10th year of existence. We just became a company in 2021 and turned it into an official social enterprise. So we've partnered with Birmingham Centre for Arts Therapies. We made a joint funding application to the Bearing Foundation charity. And the purpose of our work here is to explore culturally competent ways of building music into a healing, therapeutic, expressive arts service or program. So we want there to be more diverse workshops with more diverse workshop material and springboards and creative inspirations and diverse art forms from different parts of the world, because not everybody's getting looked at in the same way in mental health interventions. There can be a leaning towards a very British or like Western music model in the UK where we are based. So we want to open that up and look at how you can do stuff like music therapy or use the therapeutic arts, but looking at things like reggae and rap and jungle, drum and bass, UK bass, dancehall, soca music and reggaeton, just so that they can feature in different types of music services where there's creative health work happening. So how did you actually come up with your approach? Did you go in with a plan and know what you wanted to do straight away, or has it evolved over time?
I think it's evolved over time. Well, I was brought in with a lot of the statistics that really got me. At the time, I think I came in 8 years ago, it was something like 70% of people in mental health facilities were Black of ethnic origin. That really got me, and I think I was like, wow, why is that? And when I got in there, I really saw, especially in forensics, how many Black people or people of color that were literally coming in every single moment of like every hour of the day, just being brought in on things that personally weren't, they said, oh, I had a fight and I was brought in. Menial crimes, and there was a misunderstanding there. So I went in with some music and the idea of bringing music. I'm a singer-songwriter, and getting them to use that as their voice and their vehicle to exercise what they're thinking, to tell the authorities what they're thinking, what they're feeling, because I think they wasn't listening to them at the time. But once I got in there, started to do these sort of things with them, they had, we finished mixed, produced music, they could then play them, we do concerts with them, and all of this was getting them better every single day. I encourage them to go to the gym, because I think the most important thing is getting your body healthy as well as your mind. Music organizes your mind, and so for a lot of people who, with schizophrenia, bipolar, who were in hospital, the music was a great engagement for them. I worked in some medium secure units, which a lot of the patients there, have been in, and Broadmoor even. But I was able to work with these young men and women and really get them to express themselves through the music. And that was really what, I'm about, I think I said to you earlier, I wanted to be the Harriet Tubman of mental health.
Yeah, just before we go to a break at 7:30 now, can you tell us quickly who Harriet Tubman is? Harriet
Tubman, I think it's the 1800s around, in the slave times in America. She discovered the Underground Railway and decided to free loads of slaves through that railway system and get them to the north. So there was an underground railway system built, or that was a thing, and she just basically got the slaves, rounded them up, and got them to the north and to freedom. And that was her main plan. This little old black lady with a gun, and she managed to just do that in America. And I see that same thing with mental health, you see. But you have to, for me, the way to free people is to give them all the tools to know why they're in the system itself. And that's what I found was lacking.
We'll come back at 7:36 and I'll put it in the chat so that you can look back when you're ready. So 7:36 p.m, we'll have a 5-minute breather, go and get a screen break and see you in a bit. Okay, so we're just talking about Harriet Tubman and your parallel between the work that you're doing at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so everyone back in the room, 3, 2, 1. So yeah, that's what I sort of kind of base my model on. So part of it is music, but also part of it is education, because I think if you don't know the system that you're in, you'll never get free from it. Mental health is a revolving door. It's like I always found, and I'm being completely honest, I say it to OTs and doctors alike, I feel no way, but it's a revolving door of, they treat you, they fix you just enough so you come back around again, but they don't give you the tools that you don't ever come back. And that's what is basically, I think anyway, was missing. And that is that, for instance, a bed, an NHS bed, costs £850 a week for a person. When you add up the money involved in mental health, you wonder, are people really about fixing them? So when I'm working with my client patients, it's all about understanding the system that you're in. Because if you don't understand the system we're in, you're never going to get out of it. You think it's normal, but everything is based on money. Whether it's youth offending teams, whether, they've made businesses out of this. And the only way to do them is to not be involved in them at all. Get yourself well, get yourself healthy. I know there are some people who I've worked with have been discharged from services completely after about 2 years, but it can be done. And that's what's not being taught in hospitals. That's not what's being fed back to people. So as well as looking at it culturally, I was able to get the music of people's cultures involved in what they were doing, because culture is important in someone's well-being as well. And where I think that hospitals and doctors in general sometimes miss that, is that mental health is based in culture. The fact that you have to forget your culture when you come to Britain or to another country means that, and you're not supported within your culture, means that you're very easy and susceptible to falling unwell through all the other things that you're trying to be or trying to fit in. So with my workshops, I try and bring back that culture, that sense of pride. And once you find that sense of pride of who you are, because you've obviously got lost, hence your mental health, and it's bringing them back to that. What would their culture expect of them? What would this expect? And then we do that all through music. And I found that it's been, enriching. We're getting them to perform. People who've never maybe written a song before. Within 3-6 months, I've got a showcase with them, and they're all performing, their songs, and hospitals and doctors and everyone get to hear what's on their minds,
Steve, that's incredible. That's really cool. So what's the impact of that on the individual, on you, on those mental health service providers like the doctors and nurses or the youth staff? Well,
if I start with the doctors and the nurses, they love it. They love it because it's what's happened is it's brought a calm within the hospital. The music on the wards, they share it, their music on the wards, it's constantly playing, people are supporting them. So they're building a family within that. For doctors, are hearing things that they will not say to a doctor, but they'll say it on record. And so therefore, you know, they get to hear that music and go, oh, right, so this is what they're thinking. Oh, so this is what they're, you know, so they find it intriguing and they really, really, really like the work that's being done. So yeah, it's for the patient or the service user, I think, as I say, it gives them a sense of pride against it, a sense of finding themselves culturally again. You know, we all come from, all our cultures have, you know, I'm here at my mum's, but I grew up with my mum, there's a sense of culture that I have to maintain and respect that my mum expects from me. And sometimes as young people, as children, we lose that in Britain when we got here, because we're trying to assimilate. So it's just trying to bring that back to stabilize. It's the roots of your mental health. If you don't have those, then you know you could experience that mental health problems as such. So that's what I try and do with the patients and the service users.
Thanks, Steve. I've just put a few notes on that in the chat because I think it's really important that we focus on the people that we're working with here and what they get out of it. And it's clear from your work, Steve, that it's creating calm, energy, stabilizing. People are feeling like their voices heard and their culture's full. So that's incredible. Just wondering, you mentioned earlier about culture that comes in your sessions, and you've diversified the different types of culture that features in sessions. I'm just wondering what kind of music you've been making. Maybe we could hear a couple of examples as well.
Yeah, I mean, I just spent a year in Tanzania as well, and worked at a children's home called KCC. And they're out in Kigamboni. And they're a little charity children's home with an amazing bunch of kids from the community, foster homes, street kids, who are in performing arts and everything else. And there was one, now, I hope this works, I can share this with you, but one of the young men came out of prison. He was very young, about 16, 17, joint enterprise charge was on him, where he had been seen, was actually picked up by some older boys. These older boys coerced him and got him to do certain things. And one day got him to look out at the house after he went in to burgle the house. He stayed there outside being the lookout. Meanwhile, in the house was getting burgled, they also raped a woman that was in the house. This young boy had learning difficulties as well. So he was being really corrupted and brought into the fold by this gang. I got him on the first day out of prison, and we did this. Now, I'm going to show you just very quickly the process of what we did, and then you see a little short video, 30 seconds, of him singing that song. This is in Kigamboni. So I think I'm on the share. If I do this and share screen.
Thank you, Steve, for sharing that powerful story.
And then you can hear his song. There we go.
Wengine wanajivunia kuwa na magari mazuri, wengine wanajivunia kuwa na majumba mazuri, lakini mimi najivunia Bwana Yesu, lakini mimi najivunia Bwana Yesu. Wengine wanajivunia kuwa na majumba mazuri, wengine wanajivunia
There we go. There we go. Did we get to see that?
Yep, sounded amazing.
There we go.
Thank you.
Did we get to see that?
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's that was a young man, and so I did lots of work with that. There's videos on my website, dothemicthing.com, and you will see the work in Tanzania with a lot of the young people and young African bands there. You know, the poverty levels are extreme, but they are so happy, and the music we created there was fantastic. So yeah, that's a sort of example of the work. And as you saw, what I was using there was the iPad. Again, studio, mobile, keep it mobile, keep it so you can base this and do this at any sort of venue. You know, you see like a kind of street, you can set it up and you can start recording, and it's that simple to be able to produce some really, really wonderful stuff. So yeah, that's where that came from.
Steve, I was wondering, how did you get the trust of people like the NHS hospitals where really poorly people are getting better?
Yeah.
How did you win the trust for them to bring you in?
The charity that I work for, I shall name them. But I'm not really was where I worked, and
so that's where you used to work before you could do the right thing.
Before I did do the right thing, starting in 2020. So I spent 8 years literally in the hospitals doing all of this work for, and it wasn't until 2020, after the lockdowns and the restrictions, that I thought, well, this is a perfect time for me to just, you know, I'm 55. You can't work for someone all your life. You start to get 55 and your manager's like younger than you, and if your manager's younger than you, you go. So I kind of said to myself, well, look, let me set up my own thing. I know what I was doing. I'd been sort of a senior member at this for you know, for those 8 years, and I knew my worth and wanted to just go out and do what I felt, you know, under my guise, and what, you know, the things I've been telling you now are things maybe that, I'm sorry to say, but white middle class charities don't look at, you know. I'm talking about culture. I'm not afraid to talk about culture and the effects that it has on people's mental health, the effects of racism on mental health, and all of these things. But I think there's a lot of money being raised by charities that don't address these things. They say, oh, well, we're helping black people, we're helping this and the other, but you're not really, because again, if we go back to my adage, if you really want to help someone, you make sure they don't come back. But if you don't come back, you don't have a business. So this is how you work it. And I just thought, well, it's time for me to go in and be able to speak that and act upon how I see things. As I said, this is all about culture, and let's make music with culture and understand people's culture. You know, one of the funny things is, kids, and when I was working in hospitals, OTs were saying to me, oh, well, we can't say that, but we can't say certain things about someone's culture, or like, because we'll get into trouble. But if it's relevant to that culture, you've got to say it. It's like seeing someone about to get run over. You know what's going to stop them, but because, you know, we've got this PC, politically correct situation, we back off of it. And I think that's more dangerous, you know? I really think that's more dangerous. We should be able to say, listen, you know, this is what goes on. I know in the West Indian community that, for instance, you know, my sister died of alcoholism. I've got a brother in mental health, and I'm not afraid to share that with people. I'm not afraid to share that with, you know, what I know and why people shouldn't drink, or why within your culture that drinking, if you're Irish, maybe that drinking's bad. But you can't say that because, oh, well, that might be seen as, you might be seen as racist or being, you know what I mean? We've got to tackle people with the values of their culture. And I was finding that these, sorry to say, these white middle class charities just were not doing that. And it was about, we'll fix you this much. Because again, if you fix them all, and we had a lot of black people within that organization. But yeah, I was the only black mentor, you know, so it's things like that, that the address level, I just wanted to do my own thing at that point.
So you've got different people entering services, but not managing the services or working out what goes in the program.
Yeah, well, not, yeah, just not making them culturally based, or not having enough people that meet the demographic maybe of the people that make up the majority of your service. That's all. And you have to do that, because as I said, we're under 5% of the population, but we make up 80%, you know, and we're talking about black and ethnic people of mental health services. That can't be right. And therefore, but yet you've got doctors and nurses, all these people. Even now, again, you're getting a lot more OTs in within culturally to work with, you know, some of the ethnic groups there. But there still aren't enough, and there aren't enough doctors, and there aren't, and this is creating more of a mental health problem, I think. Don't shoot me.
Yeah, no, we're having an open and honest debate here and a chat. So I just want to open the floor to any questions so far. And then I think, Steve, maybe we can go into some breakout rooms and have a discussion.
Yeah.
So if you can put any of your questions either just in the chat if you want to, and I can read them out, or if you want to just come off your silent mute and just open up the floor, and we'll have another question and answer at the end as well, just so that we're breaking it up.
Yeah.
Steve, while we're waiting for questions, could you make me the host again? And then I'll set up breakout rooms for us to have a little chat.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So is anything on anybody's mind about Steve's practice, how he was, you know, met in the services he provided, who he works with, what he does, how he creates transformation, what participants enjoy, and so on and so forth.
Kieran.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Steve?
Yes, yeah, please.
Just in regards to, because like I'm mindful that, like, I mean, I've my two stepbrothers are American, so in the 80s they came over with these tapes that just blew my mind, and that was it. You know what I mean? It was you were just sold into this whirlwind of hip hop that, like, there's no internet, no nothing, and it was like, what is this? So like, I've been hooked on it pretty much my whole life. But what I find is, like, I'm freelance. I do a lot of youth work within schools. Okay. But I agree with you. It's got to be real. But the trouble is, as well, is it gets so watered down in terms of the realness, because you've got certain acts, so like EPMD and stuff like that. They talk about, you know, I love them. You know, it's sensible. It's sensible. You know, they don't cuss. They don't talk about gangs, whatever. But stuff that a lot of these kids have got to relate to, it's listening to stuff that they just won't play in schools. Or if I put stuff on, it's a complete. There's your P45.
Well, you know what it is? This is how I deal with it, Jonathan. I let them express themselves for the first, and then as they go on, they start to think about it like, oh yeah, you know, I can make some profession out of this, can't I? And as they get more and serious, then you can sort of shift them into this, oh, well, you know what? They're not going to play that on the radio. You need to do a version of it clean. And you get them to do things like that. So you shift them away from like the language, right, you know, you did that on your last track, the gun stuff. What about this? What about something, you know? And it generally works, because the more serious they get about it, the less they need more subject matter, and then more delving they have to do within themselves. So yeah, I always let them express themselves. The expressing is you get it out, and then you start to, well, you know, what about, you've done that on the last track. Oh, well, it's that. Let's try this. Let's try that. And you'll get more people to listen also. That's another way of getting them to.
No, thank you, man. I think what was interesting as well is we had a Grind Boy performance. So Casey Bailey, who's like the Birmingham Poet Laureate, wrote Grind Boy. And what was really interesting is, like, I'm always the minority in my line of work, in the areas I work in. I'm this like middle-aged white bloke, but because I'm just myself. You know what I mean? It takes me a while to be accepted into certain communities, but I get there in the end. You know what I mean? But I think what was really successful with Grind Boy is a lot of these young lads, they saw that you don't have to be effing and blinding with a load of drill music. You can be a professional actor, and you can carry yourself, you know, very professionally. And it's like, you don't have to be a bad man. You can be a professional.
Absolutely.
And that's a lot of the trouble is, a lot of these kids, especially with mobile phones, it's 24/7. Like, so if I see a kid 2 hours a week, what are they doing for the other 100 and whatever hours? Do you know what I mean? And that's the trouble. It's role models on YouTube channels.
Do you give them homework? Like, you know, if you're seeing someone maybe over a 6-week period, do you give them sort of targets and things like, well, next week I want you to come back with this, and set out a sort of plan for them within that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff we do is it's like, it's all around well-being. So we sort of hit on different aspects. So I think the one thing I've got to try and do is do a bit more research in terms of, like, you know, when you've got like Dave doing the Psycho tune, having actual subject matter. Do you know what I mean? So I think, but I see what you mean about setting targets.
Definitely. I make sure that every week there's a target to meet. So I said, well, next week I want the second verse, and but next week I want this part, and I'll ring them up in the week. So I do a lot of that as well. So communication. I call it a music mentoring. So you literally are on the phone to them in the week, talking to them, how's it going? You know, seeing how they are, getting them ready for the next session, you know, in a few days' time or something. And as long as they've got those guidelines, you find you start to manage them quite well. And the fact that I tell you what, the fact that they want their music to be heard, you can tell the swearing will be cut out quickly, because those people aren't listening to it.
Yeah, and well, the other little bargaining chip as well is, you can tell them they can listen and keep it if they don't cuss, and then they're like, okay. So yeah, I agree with that one big time. Thank you, mate. Thank you.
No, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you.
Thank you. Has anyone got any other questions then? Kieran.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask something else earlier. I was going to say something else, but just in response to what you were just saying, I think, yes, I understand the pragmatic necessity to sort of cut out and censor things, and I understand that it's really important. If you've got kids who are writing rhymes quietly in their bedroom, you know, out of sight of everything, it's a very personal and deeply isolated experience. And then when you start as their mentor saying, no, I want these goals, it starts to make it more formal and real, and they start to take on a bit more responsibility for themselves. So I think that's important, but also at the same time, I mean, some of the songs I write and some of the things I record, nobody gets to hear them, but they're just filth, you know. They're just, the language is just, you know, it's just normal language as a human being. You know, I'm an adult, but at the same time, no, it's artistic. Don't get me wrong. But I think there needs to be a certain level of education as to why there is obscenity, where this is coming from. You know, people coming from deprivation, from poverty, they live in their bodies far more than people who are privileged, closeted, who live up here rather than down here, you know, for incarceration, hunger, violence. The body is just stored full of all of this energy that needs to come out, and it doesn't come out in a nice operatic voice. It comes out making noise. And Western civilized society denies you to be physically present. It wants you to be abstract and intellectually present. And that's where you prove yourself in that realm. But if you start to become physically present, you know, the gruff voice, the aggression, the loudness, that's where you get the negative responses, and they want to shut it down. And I think in terms of therapy and, you know, the cathartic aspect of what they're doing as young people, if you start to shut that down, you can chase a few people away, and that's where the mistrust could step in. I think the way you're handling it and the way you're dealing with it, you know, is impeccable. You know, just if you want to get it played on the radio, come on. The people are inspiring you, the tunes you're listening to every day. You know, you've got grill artists like, I don't know, Lowski. He started off in Harlem Spartans, and he was very street, very gang. But then he started to get in with the bigger producers and started to sort of polish his sound and things like that. And getting into the charts, you know, getting top 5 and things like that. So that all, you know, I think as a strategy, he's very effective as well. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
No,
Steve.
You're right there, Kim. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely agree with that. Oh, good. Good.
Martin.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, so I'm a CBT therapist for children and young people, and what I'm really intrigued about is how the lyricism goes hand in hand with trauma-based stuff. So, like, I've done courses on trauma-informed CBT, and I found it quite difficult because you're having to get the young person to relive their traumas, and you're getting them to kind of expose themselves to those situations. And I'm just wondering, through doing it through music, in your experience, has that been a bit of an easier process?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
It's empowering. It's, you know, you give somebody a mic and put it in front of them and they suddenly everyone will have something to say. Yeah. And that's what the mic does. I could do the mic thing because the mic is king, and I think it commands respect, and that's what I think I found with experiencing with their trauma, is that once we get into the studio, they're able to, you know, with the support of myself or whatever, they're able to go through what's happened to them. We talk about so many different aspects of things that maybe doctors, they don't talk about with the doctor, that happen on the wards. I get them to channel it through that microphone and through the recording process. So I think it would be a very, very good tool to use it in that sense. You know, the funny thing with recordings is that when you have them, you've got them for life to listen back to. You can see where you went wrong. You can see where, you know, we don't use it enough. Yeah. We don't use recordings as like, you know, there's a trick I used to do, and it's not even a trick, but people used to be on the ward unwell, and you go on, the doctor's going, look, or the nursing staff, no, he's unwell, look, he can't come and do any music, no, he's been throwing chairs around, he's been this. And he's having a psychotic moment. And I say, well, look, let me go and see him. I'll go see him. I say, do you want to come and do some music? They're like, yeah. and they come down and they're in their psychotic thing, and they're, you know, letting off around all this rambling. And then the next week they come in and I go and I play it back to them, and you should see the change. They're like, what is that? What I sound like? Oh my goodness. And it really, you see, right, I need to get myself well. You know, is that what I do? They don't realize what they do because no one's playing back, whether it's a video or a thing. But in the music, that's what I did. I sometimes, as I say, get somebody who was having a psychotic episode, or, you know, in a bipolar state maybe. And I would always take them, even though the ward said, oh, don't, you know, because music's got some amazing properties. Take them down, record them. Next week, bring them back to the ward. Next week, they come along and, you know, they're a much more stable place. And you play it back to them and they're like, oh, goodness, wow, was that me? Oh, my, no, oh, you know. And all the things that got them there, i.e. alcohol sometimes, you know, they go and think they'll cut that out, because they can see how they're behaving. But we need to do more recording, you know, with your CBT and everything else to show as examples there.
Yeah, I think that's...
Just wondered if you could show us an example, and I'll pass back over to Martin. What were you going to say while Steve maybe gets us an example of some recording?
I was just going to say, yeah, I completely agree. And logically, it's just right, isn't it? And exactly what you say in recording it as well. But I'd also agree with you, especially with my therapist hat on, what you were saying about hospitals. You know, that revolving door. Like I worked in an adult mental health crisis unit for 10 years, and it was just the same personality disorder people coming in constantly, the same people. And that's why one of the reasons I moved to children and young people, because you can get in early and do those early interventions. But you know, it's just medication, doctors, medication, and there's just a real lack of therapy.
Absolutely. And long-term therapy, or things that are going to be, you know, really useful.
Yeah.
That's all it is. We really need to step outside that. I'm going to have a little look around.
Okay. And while you do that, we've got another couple of questions, and I'm just thinking, just want to respond quickly to something that you said, Martin, and then we can go to Jonathan. I can see you've got your hand up. So Bessel van der Kolk in his book talked about different types of therapies he tried in his trauma center in the USA, and he's what's considered the leading expert in trauma around the world. He runs a trauma super conference. He's been a trauma expert for 30 years, and he shares practice tales in his book where he's talking about how exposing people to their traumas re-traumatizes them so that they sort of drop off the therapy. And in the clinical studies, it's been the most researched area, but then people haven't always finished the studies. And the difference that's been made has been very nominal, especially with people who've been abused or raped and experienced child abuse. And he talks about other therapies, such as things that involve breathing and yoga and movement and the arts and drama as being really effective. So you mentioned about the sort of narrative elements of hip hop. I find that as a traumatized individual myself, the first time I used narrative, what it was doing without me realizing was it was seaming together the shattered sensory perceptions that my brain had split in the traumatizing event. So what had happened was somebody else had passed away. I was reliving the trauma of that because I'd read witness reports about what happened to them. Just give you a trigger warning, it was my sister. She passed in a car accident. So I was writing a poem on the first day of my MSc in creative therapeutic writing, went through a creative therapeutic exercise, and it was a pleasant poem that we used on the first day as an intro exercise. And it was talking about where you come from, memories from the past, pleasant childhood memories like space hoppers and having toffee apples and, you know, cotton candy and, you know, matchbox cars, that kind of thing, and EastEnders, Coronation Street. But then because the first lines were like, I come from blah, 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 blah. I started listing all these sense perceptions from the actual trauma event, and it was coming through in symbol, metaphor, allegory. And then afterwards, I had this massive flood of tears, and I'd literally just met these people on my first day of this MSc, and I was like, oh my God, I'm letting everything out. They're going to be thinking I'm a nut job. But I was like, oh my God, the shards of sense perceptions that I now know were split when the amygdala is receiving information, and the stem, the corpus callosum here, that's making you feel self-aware, and the sort of prefrontal cortex making sense of things, because they're all offline in different points. I was only getting the sounds, the visual stimuli, but those were being represented in the words. And because they were on one page, it helped me to contain those things that I'd never seen or put together. They'd all just been floating around ethereally. So that helped me to process it and package it, put it down, which I really didn't realize I had been doing until after I learned about how trauma and narrative processing works. But yeah, just an observation. And then, yes, Jonathan, if we take your question, I can see a couple of questions in the chat, but I want to give you guys a chance to talk to each other and have a little chat about this stuff as well. So, Jonathan.
Thank you. I'd be interested to hear off everybody, really, because obviously everybody's got different backgrounds and stories and stuff. But every time I say this, I just visualize my head popping off, because it makes me so angry and just despairing, and a multitude of emotions at the same time. Two things really. One, I'm just interested in hearing. I can't even get my words out sometimes with this, because it makes me so.
It's all right, mate. We got time. Take it easy. Let it out.
And it's two things really. One is the amount of arts that are just being called left, right, and centre in terms of local authorities and as treatments within local authorities, and music within schools being just decimated, really. And the other one is in terms of a curriculum, because, you know, we've all got our own stories, and I went through my own stuff and had counselling. I still work with my CBT therapist 25 years later doing stuff, because I'm that passionate about what we need to have early on, you know, from primary, from inception, you know, never mind it at 15, 20, 25 years old. But why do you think as a society, not just here, but like all over the world really, and different countries are at different levels, but why, and this isn't a dig at people who are geography teachers, history teachers or whatever, but what is the point in ramming 10, 11, 12 GCSEs down a kid's throat if we haven't got the basics right? It's trillions of pounds, not billions, it's trillions of pounds over decades that we're just, excuse my language, pissing up the wall. Because if we embedded this stuff into the curriculum, I'm not saying it's a silver bullet, because some kids go through hell from a very, very early age, but why aren't we implementing stuff within a curriculum? And I just don't get it. I don't understand why we've got this model of, I think it was Kieran saying about, you know, everything's built on success from an outside of body. You know, it's we don't deal with us as human beings, and it just drives me absolutely insane. Sorry, that's my rant over, but I'd be just interested.
It's all good, man. That's what we're having these
other people's opinions
for. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I'm a great, you know, exponent of creativity. I just believe that is the number one freedom factor that anyone can have. It allows you to be fluid, and as you said, they don't teach you that in school. They want you to be so regimented. And what I did with my kids is that I made sure that the arts was the first thing above anything that they learned, because if they didn't have any artistic endeavor, they're just stuck in that one job and not know that how to make that one job do 10 different things, you know, and that's what you kind of learn with the arts. But I think there's a concerted effort in the powers that be that don't want us to know this, and they don't want us to know, you know, we're scratching our head. I think it's quite simple. It's clear to see it, especially, you know, over the last couple of years. Nobody listens to us. And they haven't done with schools. You know, I worked in a boys' school for 6 years. I was the lead mentor and pastoral manager of a boys' secondary school for, I like to say 6 years, because I think you should always stay as long through the whole, you know, see a year group through. And I did that. And it was just, and I'll tell you something, I never went to school. I didn't even do my mocks and exams. And I ended up, I said to myself, is this my penance? As God sort of said to me, you're going back to school. And I was helping these people stay in school when I didn't, and I didn't go to school. But it opened up a whole load of can of worms for me of reasons why. It made me even more hardened in that, why I don't believe in the curriculum, why I didn't go to school in the first place, left before my mocks. You know, they had to pay me to come into school. I had to, but one teacher paid me 10 cigarettes and a £1 if I'd come in for a week. I came in for a week, I took the money and I bunked off again. They got so angry in the school, they said to me, right, okay, listen, you've got to do maths, science and English. You can do anything you want. And of course, I just hang on to my art teacher's, you know, apron, really. And she taught me everything I know about just freedom, fluidity, creativity. Come my mock exams, I left, went to a graphic design place and showed them my work, and I got a job. I just was not interested in school one bit. So, and now what I see happening in schools now, I'm like, I was ahead of the game, because it really is indoctrination and brainwashing and putting people in this thing that, you know, they drum out all your skill, all your imagination as a child that you used to have, and you're given, it's like squashed within schools, and that's on purpose.
So
that's on purpose.
Let's bring a breakout room to have a smaller discussion now, and Gina's got a question, so when we come back we'll do a break, then we'll do some more Q&A. When you go into the breakout rooms, our theme is just basically what you do. Please introduce yourselves. Yeah, you can bring up any practice tales that you have. Just mention, you know, a process that you use that works or a tip you want to share, and we'll spend say 9 minutes up until the 1/2 point, and then we'll go over to a little 5-minute break. Okay, then see you in a bit. So just get to know each other, and then we'll start back with Gina.
Cool.
Okay, you ready to go? I'll put the time to come back in the chat as well. 2019, 2030.
Hello. So
we were just saying in our breakout room that it'd be really good to keep in touch and keep a dialogue going. So every month, second Monday, we'll be here doing this with a different guest each week. And it'd be great if you could give it a push. If you see it on Twitter or on LinkedIn, it will really help us keep this going, because we want people to like learn from each other and be able to share questions and be like, how do you manage if this happens or that happens? So to that end, we're going to start today. We'll make a list of the links in the chat and we'll send those out as like a Google shared document. And then you can spread that with the people in your team as a training, pass the knowledge on. And if you want to share your companies, pop them in the chat and I'll save the chat at the end. We can share your website. So then every month we'll build up a resource bank of people's details, and then hopefully share some more trainings if you guys are putting events on or you want to do any webinars. So before we carry on, Gina, you had a question.
I can't remember the question now. I think it was to do with culturally sensitive work. And something
Gina, before you carry on, I think because Steve's in the same room and you come off the mic, yeah, would you be able to put one? Yeah, if one of you's off and the other one's on, it should be okay. Let's try it again. Sorry, Bab. That's all good so far.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it, sorted.
Is that better?
Yeah.
So working culturally sensitively, I just wanted to just ask Steve, and I don't think I've actually asked him that, I should have, but when you work with somebody who looks like you or knows that you're from a different culture as they are, do they feel more comfortable in the room when they're working with you, or when they actually see you in the room for the first time? Do you see like a bit of anxiety freed, or how does that, or is it just the same for everyone?
Right. I think, yeah, there is a change. There's a change in the room, a massive change in the room, actually, to be honest. I think there's a comfort in knowing that identification, that they can see someone and that's going to sort of understand them. And, you know, as I say, I used to walk around Chase Farm Hospital with this guy with this mad crazy afro here. So everybody knew me, and it was a case where even if they didn't do music, they would want to be around the music room or come out of their session wherever they are and come into the music room because they just wanted to be there. So I had such quite a pull with my audience and stuff, and I think that's because I do share a lot of my life. I'm very open, and I think with them, you know, my childhood, my bad boy days, my good days, my straight days, my, you know, and I think that makes them think, oh no, you know what, Steve's all right, you know, let's go. And there's a relationship there. So yeah, that's a key as well. Don't be afraid to share things or experiences of your own with them. It's a good way of relating and gaining trust.
Thank you so much. And on that note, we're just going to go for a quick 5-minute break now. I'm conscious you've all been at the end of a sweltering hot day. Go and splash your face with some water, have 5 minutes, breathe it, and then we'll hit the last final 20 minutes just with a few questions, and we'll focus back at 2040. Okay, so I'll put that in the chat for you. I forgot to do it last time. So 8:40 p.m. All right, big ups, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
So welcome back from the break, everybody. We are going to finish off today with a little checkout and just any other questions that we had in the chat. So before we left, we had Gina asked, do you think that being culturally sensitive helps service users become more relaxed and feel more comfortable to work with you? I think we've kind of covered that. Gina, are you happy with that so far? Would you like us to? Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Claire just made a comment saying I'm a nearly qualified music therapist, and we definitely see the use of non-verbal ways of communicating like music or art to express pre-verbal traumas. We definitely see the use of those things, because those early traumas may never have been verbalized. Yeah, expression is powerful. And the thing that brought me to this work was James Pennebaker accidentally stumbled across the power of writing to heal. And he found that patients or people that he'd worked with who had disclosed traumatic experiences earlier in their life with a positive, hopeful outlook, after 20 minutes of writing about them with an open door to a positive change coming at the end of the writing, 4 times in a row, consecutive days, helped them to reduce their stress indicators, their medication, trips to hospital, and they measured that at a university in America. and then looked at it again in, I think, a month and then 6 months time. And there was, you know, because people are different, some people are into writing, some people express themselves through movement or writing or, sorry, expressive arts. Some people go for walks. And so the thing here is that we're not saying that there's one way to fix everyone's trauma, but if we have a go at looking at various ways and introducing different cultures and different means, we might hit the sweet spot for somebody, you know, in a way that they'd never tried before. So any final questions for Steve before we go for a little checkout? Okay, Martin.
Steve, what's your success rate, mate, with when you're working with trauma? How successful is it?
Great question.
You see, I call evidence success, because we you know, live in our money and all our fundings and everything else is tied to that. So I don't know, I can show you though, I've got 4 terabytes of music in 8 years of people that you can evidently show, you know, what they did. There's people in the community who have been discharged, you know, I currently work with or have worked with in the past. I suppose those are a success rate, seeing them discharged. But discharge takes quite a long time in a forensic setting. You know, it can, so you've got to be patient. It could take up to 2-3 years, at least, a minimum, for a patient to get out. But that's really, wow, that's really pleasing to hear and to see that growth from, you know, entry, coming into hospital and out at the other end. So yeah, the success rate really is the evidence. I'm not going to sort of, you know, look for anything else. It's like, listen to what this person has done, who is apparently schizophrenic or bipolar, and, you know, or, you know, in some cases with a young man who had pushed a man on the train line in a British train line in a schizophrenic moment. One young man I was working with, and within 2-3 years, he's such a lovely guy. We got him out, but the music he was making, and his, I suppose, things like attendance. I kept attendance, nearly 100% attendance, you know, in every case. They really missed the studio session with me. Those things are sort of successful. You know, if you've got someone, I do a model, I'll describe very quickly. I do 6 sessions. My sessions last an hour, but they're like 40 minutes, but the other 20 is then based around, you know, you're chatting, you're doing something, but they're about 40 minutes. And within those 40 minutes, I come out, or 6 sessions, we come out with at least 2 to 3 finished, mixed and produced songs for them. So again, that's successful for me.
Awesome stuff, mate.
Might be different. It might be different for other people, you know, what doctors see and what clinical staff see, but they also see that this person is not falling ill. This person is attending the session, and I suppose that's what success looks like.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing a great job, mate. Sounds really good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to put some stuff in the chat. The podcast that we make, Glow with the Flow, actually explores what works on the ground with various hip hop therapists who are going to be guests on this monthly seminar series. There are also social entrepreneurs who work with service users through music regarding their mental health. And we also got a YouTube channel which has some of the filmed podcast footage on there. Not all of them were filmed. Some were done in the studio face to face before we had the pandemic kick off. So we were just planning on doing them all in the studio face to face, and never thought about putting them on a YouTube channel with our videos on. And then when the pandemic hit, we all started moving on to Zoom, and that's how I started chatting to people in America and abroad. So now through that relationship, we got funding to bring us together in our training programs. So we've just completed 2 pilots on our trauma-informed trauma programs and got funding for this monthly series by the Bearing Foundation. So we're applying for more funding. We'll be putting more training together. And there's an organisation called Cumin Network who also look at impact in bass music and urban music. And it's an inclusive network sharing impact, research, practice, tales from the ground. So they've had 2 events they've just launched. I was fortunate enough to be invited to York University, where they partnered with Cambridge University to put on an international seminar and workshop with people from America and so on to share their practice. So I'm putting their page on, let's see, on Eventbrite into the chat now for you. So this is aimed at filling that gap where urban music's impact is being researched and shared. Okay, let's go for a little checkout then. So when we go around the circle this time, I'd like you to share one golden takeaway, a golden nugget from today that you might have heard from somebody in the breakout room. Could be an idea that you've sparked while you're listening that you might implement, that you've just made up, or something that you've heard from our guest today, Steve from Do the Mic Thing. So we'll start off somewhere different. So how about Martin? Would you like to kick us off this time? And then we'll go across to Lorna, Claire and Samina.
So I think I'm taking away, you mentioned about the power of writing to heal. I think that's it was something like that, a sentence you said that I really liked. And what kind of clicked for me was how writing and emceeing can kind of put those thoughts, feelings, emotions all in one manageable place. I think you mentioned something about that. And yeah, that's what I'm going to take from today. I think that's been really helpful to me.
Thank you so much. So if Lorna, you'd like to come on and just come on your mic, that's fine. And also Claire, we've just got 10 minutes, so we'll keep it nice and succinct like Martin. Thank you so much.
Just for me, really, it was about coming together and speaking to like-minded people who are all kind of wanting to help young people in the same way through passionate kind of ways around music and like the cultural competence of it and stuff. So yeah, that's really, really helpful for me, and I'm looking forward to kind of joining in the future.
I'm so chuffed to hear that, Lorna. Thank you. Claire, then Samina.
No, thanks very much, Steve. Yeah, I'm just taking away the kind of work you're doing and going to go and have a look at your website and learn and absorb some more.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Samina, that's good.
Yeah, so many things to choose from, but something that stuck with me was, I think, something that Steve, you said in the beginning, something very simple, but like suddenly a lot of things clicked. Mental health is culture. I think that was just so beautiful and really something to take away in the future. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Shall we go to Gina, then Jonathan and Kieran, please?
I think
Oh, Gina, it's actually accidentally gone back on mute. It started off been all right, and then you've accidentally somehow switched it back on. Oh, that's it. I can hear you now.
It was just about how you can measure success in different ways. So it might not be the way that, you know, somebody's making a track or something, but it's the fact that they've turned up consistently. So, you know, they might want to just talk that day, or they might just want to listen to some songs, and just to know that they've still turned up for you, to know that, you know, they're still engaged in it. So that was my takeaway today.
Yeah, we meet people at various levels, and then we're more likely to meet them where they're at. Thank you, Gina. Okay, Jonathan. Thank you.
Yeah, just in terms of, like I said, a lot of the stuff I do is around well-being, but I think it's more important than ever, really, that we start to think outside the box. You know, if we want these kids to progress and to, I hate these words, but sort of like fit into the curriculum. Of just hearing what Steve said and other people, just being a bit more savvy in terms of incorporating this stuff, and just, I don't know, just sort of evidence basing it to the point where, okay, well, if this is working in this one particular session, and this kid's getting kicked out of the other 4 sessions that he's in the day, then let's try, you know, focusing on the one that's working, not the 4 that isn't. So maybe sort of like trying to get, you know, senior leadership teams in these schools to sort of understand that we can't keep banging our head, you know, banging a stick over these kids' heads and expecting them to change. We've got to change the curriculum more than the kids got to change to the beat of their drum, pardon the pun, if you know what I mean. So, but yeah, no, thank you, Steve. Thank you both.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Big ups, big ups. Thank you, Kieran. And then I'll go next.
Okay, yeah, no, I just want to say that from the, obviously the resources, the cultural resources that Steve's talking about, you know, we're talking about African diasporic musical culture, and it's not just a handy toolbox. You've got to be knowledgeable, you've got to be respectful of it. There are certain things that are antithetical to everything that the West has held dear and has used to dominate other cultures. I won't get too political, but I think the more knowledgeable and respectful you are of that, the more you listen to it, the more you listen to the artists, do your research. There's so much out there on YouTube. There's so many podcasts all over the world, you know, in the Anglophone world at least. I think you need to do that. It's not a handy toolbox just to, you know, magically produce well-being in people. Anyway.
You're right.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think a key takeaway for me today is that just the power of us having a chat on a Monday night and just feeling not alone. I think I feel less alone, being able to talk to you, and it's a relief to be able to share different ideas, because I don't believe that through one approach we'll get there. I think if we just have a toolkit of things to work with different people, then you'll find something that works for you with your personality style, with different people and their personality style. And if you find what works for you as a professional that you're comfortable with, that's where the magic happens. Because when other people see you passionate, they're going to feel inspired. And I think that, without me trying, has been one of the biggest and most impactful parts of my research. I narrowed a big body of work with lots of overwhelming avenues that I could take into the one thing that worked for me, and I tried it and it was really having results for me. So I was like, you know, I'll start there because I used it, and then I've never moved on. Like, I always sort of build all this model with subsidiary approaches, and the thing that I do is so powerful for me that when I do it with other people, I know it can have the most impact. So it's just using the idea of an inner mentor, and like, imagine you've got 2 words for yourself. If you went back in time, or you had 30 seconds to talk to yourself back when you were 18 years old, you know, what would you say from your wise old kind voice, and with love and nurturing, talking to yourself in a journal and having that hopeful twist at the end? So like, if somebody passed away, you wouldn't be able to find a positive, except for that maybe having them in your life blessed you at all. Like, it's better that you knew them and they went, other than not having them at all, kind of thing. So, you know, finding an open door that you can leave things on a hopeful twist. The research has scientifically been evidenced to have a greater impact in terms of narrative. So Steve, what are your takeaways for today? Final takeaway.
I'm just really grateful and thanking everybody as well for giving me the opportunity
to do this, because this is my first time doing a webinar of any sort. So you've made me feel at ease, you know, all of you, and I take from it is that yeah, it's just that it's been I'm chuffed really that everyone has made me feel comfortable enough to deliver it. I've always got lots to say, but when you sort of, you know, stood on the stages and done lots of things like this, but this has been a first to you know, to have people listen to my thoughts and things. You know, I always tend to say sometimes to people, some to the kids, you don't want to listen to me. I'll always end it with, you don't want to listen to me.
You know what? The thing is, we've all got this idea in our heads that, you know, maybe somebody else is doing a better job than us, or, you know, what have I done? You never see what you've done until your friends or your peers reflect back to you, and you're like, whoa, have I done all of that? I didn't realize. And they watch you grow and change, and as time passes, they see you and you've done more. So they notice the changes, and they notice your achievements and how you've grown in practice. And your participants are also, you know, on that journey with you. So it's important to have lived experience of practitioners to shape programs, as well as the people that we serve, because we also have a body of knowledge and we've also been through our own thing. So if we use that as a power and not a detriment, not something that wounds us, but something that has a power to help share, you know, light and healing for the people. Sorry to get all hippie-ish, but like Jonathan, you've got like the shining light there, like a big like enlightened being there, like the auras coming out of your head. So I'm just thinking, you know, just listening to a song when you can't say what you want to say, or hearing a song when you can't you know, when you can't say what you want to say, it brings that comfort that we've all experienced. And that's why they're played at weddings, funerals, births, religious festivities. We get around, we make music and we dance, and that's what's it's simple. It makes people feel good. So on that note, keep up your good work. I've put a load of stuff in the chat for you, which I'll send by email, so you'll all have the links. And thank you for coming. It'd be great if you could make next month and spread the word. All right, take it easy, guys. Lovely to meet you all. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Cheers.
Very comfortable for me all. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, folks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.